So tell us about Startup Hawaii.
So Startup Hawaii is our local region, Hawaii's region of the Startup America partnership. They now have regions in all 50 states. Startup America is focused on spurring job creation through helping support startups through startup innovation. And they feel that a lot of the new jobs will be created by small businesses that have high growth potential. What Startup Hawaii does is sort of take that message and then apply it locally. So we're a small team. We've only done a couple events. This event last week, Accelerating Hawaii with Steve Case, was just our second event.
Not bad.
No, it wasn't too bad. But we're focused on, there are kind of three angles. So one, we're by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. So we want to focus on helping spur entrepreneurial growth and helping entrepreneurs understand what they need to do or how they can launch their own business. And we want to be guided by entrepreneurs because we're the ones who really know where the challenges are in building a company in Hawaii. The second then is once we identify those challenges as a group, we want to pull the community together and address those challenges. So whether it's working with the state government or federal government and trying to find ways to solve problems, or getting local corporations to step up. And there are a ton of local support organizations for entrepreneurs, for businesses, and we want to work with all them as well as all the kind of like high capacity and startup weekend and all the other entrepreneurial or startup focused organizations. We don't want to repeat anything. Tech Hui does a fantastic job. We want to sort of guide people there. So with all that, we want to do it together. And so we want to take what Startup America has positioned. We want to apply that locally, identify challenges, and then help address those challenges. And then we want to do it with all the organizations that already exist. We don't want to repeat it or duplicate anything. And we want to sort of help elevate all ships, if you will.
Wow, that's pretty ambitious. Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to spend your time?
Why do
doing
I
this?
want to do this? Well, I'm an entrepreneur myself. I'm very happy to help other entrepreneurs. And over the last couple of years, it's just in going to a lot of the events that happen locally, I talk to a lot of other entrepreneurs and other people who have started businesses, and there's just always different things we say, that's a gap, or that's a gap, or that's a challenge. And when the Startup Hawaii, Startup America opportunity came along, I was part of the gang that helped kick it off. And I just feel like I want to give back and want to bring everybody together and want to help move things along. And like you said, there seems to be a lot of momentum behind it currently. And I'm just a big proponent of getting things done and pushing that momentum forward and trying to help that momentum keep its momentum.
So tell us about what happened last Thursday, Friday. That to the third party, it sounded like a pretty ambitious program. And then we went there and you found out that, my goodness, it was meeting all the levels of anticipation, of ambition right there. It was full house. And I want to know how that happened.
Well, thanks for the kind words. I appreciate that. And the whole team appreciates that. The way it kind of came about was the state has $2 million that they're going to apply towards building a couple accelerators. And in talking with Hawaii Strategic Development Corporation's Carl Fuchs, he was talking about doing an accelerator workshop. Startup America had offered up, since Steve Case is the chairman, had offered him up as a potential speaker for us. And we talked and said, let's get together, put on one big event. So between our two organizations, we pushed this whole thing along. And so Thursday was wide open for everyone. We had over 300 people there at the Sheraton Waikiki. It was panels of startups, panels of support organizations. We had, then Steve Case is the keynote. We had 5 or so accelerator managers from the mainland who are currently running accelerators come in and sort of share their wisdom and their opinions about how Hawaii can really do a great job at building some startup accelerators. And then we had, obviously, Steve Case as the keynote, and then he stayed on and participated in a panel. We had 3 startup CEOs and 3 bigger corporate CEOs like Hawaiian Airlines and HECO and Queens Medical Systems. And sort of challenge them to say, all right, what are you doing to help promote entrepreneurship and startup growth here in Hawaii. So it was a fantastic event, a lot of great feedback.
Brought everybody in. You
Yes,
had all these people coming in. That's like a community barn raising kind of thing.
Exactly. It's the Amish startup.
Yeah, that's great. So I was there for one panel you chaired, and it was in the late morning on the Thursday, and that was very impressive. And I knew some or most of them, and they were all very impressive picks.
Thanks.
I don't know, there were other panels before that, I guess?
Yes.
So you went on with panels of 4, 5, 6 entrepreneurs all morning that way. How did you make the selections?
That was a tough choice. I even joked, I emceed the startups panel. We had 5, and I joked at the beginning of that we picked from 17,000, and there were for the startup organizations, for the support organizations, for the startups themselves, even for the accelerators from the mainland. We got a lot of feedback from local startups. We had a lot of choices to make. We had a lot of people sort of offering themselves up, and it was difficult. I mean, we had a lot of we wanted to get a good cross section of people from either very super early stage, kind of idea stage startups, way to like Ukulele Underground is in their
I
third
love those
year.
guys.
They're
fabulous.
Fantastic.
I interviewed them in Kauai in connection with the broadband initiative. It was fabulous to talk to them.
And just great. That's a great example of just they just have good hearts, and they want to succeed, and you want to see them succeed.
Yeah.
And one of a couple of the teams were venture funded, a couple of them weren't. So it was a good cross section. A couple were all tech. Nella Media Group is not yet tech, but they're a publishing house. So there was a good cross section.
Yeah, he's also a hotshot, amazing man. No
Yeah.
kidding. So and he's got a good name.
Yes.
But I mean, I wonder what's in it for them when they come around and they tell their story, and they were all really smart. That must have been the test among the 17,000.
Yeah.
Smart and articulate and engaging, relatable kind of people.
Yeah.
But I just wonder what's in it, why they come around and tell you the story of their company.
Yeah.
Maybe they're giving away some secrets. I know that's not really a consideration, but what's in it for them?
Well, so we sort of this was another part of the selection of we wanted people who are, number one, interested in helping push the whole startup ecosystem here in Hawaii. So we wanted that to be part of their belief, and we also wanted people who weren't going to promote their business and were going to be there to sort of add to the community involvement around this event. What's in it for them is essentially just helping to support this entire movement. And it's not just Startup Hawaii. It's not just these couple accelerators that may come out in the next year. It is the entire ecosystem and pushing it forward. And all 5 of the startups who were there kind of have that same mindset of whatever we can do to help Hawaii's startups get more notoriety, get more awareness, get more exposure. We want to help. So,
what's the thought process there? I'm really curious. Maybe there's a bunch of things that motivate people, but if I'm one startup and I'm working till 2 o'clock in the morning doing my thing, I'm trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
And I have the right mentality and all that, but what makes me go down there and do that? What makes me want to help other startups? What makes me want to help, say the common good, which is one of my favorite terms.
Yeah.
Why do they care? Why do they come down?
I think, just as we mentioned about like Ryan from Ukulele Underground, they just have a good heart and they want to help the community grow and succeed.
The people behind them in the pipeline.
The people behind
the ones
them in
who
the
will be doing
pipeline.
the same thing maybe later, one step behind.
Exactly. I also think there's one of the gaps and one of the challenges I'm sure you've heard many times is sort of the lack of talent or the difficulty in finding good talent for startups, and one of the underlying currents of the whole ecosystem is how do we find the talent that's here and have them come out of the woodwork and raise their hand, and number 2, how do we attract more talent here? And for these startups, they all are growing and they all are hiring and they all need to find talent, and that's part of it, is creating the awareness that Hawaii has a good startup ecosystem, and the startup ecosystem here is growing, and there are potential opportunities for entrepreneurs and people who are looking for work, whether it's in tech or development or product management. So I think there's obviously their big push or big motivator is helping the entire community, but there's also the, if Hawaii's startup ecosystem is successful and growing, that helps them and their businesses individually, because there's more talent to choose from, there's more awareness of the system as a whole, more investment will come in, there's more opportunity for them. So, but obviously they're all very, very committed to helping Hawaii's startups become more successful. And like you said, they're all willing to help that next person in line. And who, Ryan had some good anecdotes about. No one ever told them no over on Kauai. He didn't have any. They didn't have any peers to help tell them, "Hey, we started an internet business before."
There's a benefit to that.
There's a benefit to that, absolutely, of no one telling you that's a bad idea. And but now Ryan's in a position where he could say he can help them, the next guy or the next woman, and help them avoid some of the mistakes that he made.
I want to explore it some more. You know, I don't think it's misery loves company. That's not an element. You know, that I'm working 2 o'clock in the morning, and that I like you to know that I'm working 2 o'clock and want to see you feel better about you working to it. Nah, it's not that.
Yeah.
It may be that if we work together, if we form a community, that will, as you say, raise all boats.
Yeah.
And it's not only for my benefit, although I get a benefit, it's for your benefit. And then if we have all the boats raised, then the world will take note.
Yes.
And that means there'll be more people come around and would be more likely to hit critical mass sooner. Critical mass being that the world sees Hawaii as a place where this phenomenon happens.
Yes, yeah.
And if the world sees that, then there'll be money here, there'll be recognition here, there'll be who knows what kind of support coming here or giving us face. So I think it's like forming a community. And what's interesting about that is that I don't believe that the community was ever as robust as it was on Thursday.
Oh, good.
Really.
Thank you.
You know, I mean, there was always a community of some kind, you know, a handful of people forming one kind of alliance or another. But, you know, it's a different mentality, I think, you sort of achieved somehow.
Oh,
maybe it's in the culture of the organization, whereas, you know, really open-minded. And I forgive you in advance. You can make mistakes. It's okay.
Thanks.
I'm going to support you. It's all
Great,
right.
Thanks. I'm sure there'll be a lot of mistakes.
No, but I mean, they're all saying that to each other. They're saying, we're in this, the one point of commonality that we have together is that we're all struggling through this.
Yeah.
And some of us are going to fail. But we forgive each other. It's okay.
Yeah.
And this kind of open-minded, nice, as you pointed it out, kind of open-minded, kind-hearted approach builds community a lot faster.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've had that kind of thing in those numbers before. So I think you're onto something here, Jason. No kidding.
Yeah.
It's God. I mean, it's from your lips to God's ears. It should continue to move down that track.
Yep.
The other thing is the money. I mean, you know, to me, if I'm a venture capitalist, I want to hear them pitch.
Yeah.
I want to hear them pitch in a crucible where there's pressure.
Yeah.
I want to hear them actually tell a story under pressure and make me believe in them.
Yeah.
And putting them up on a stage in front of a couple of hundred people, that really does the job.
That's a crucible, yeah. We actually on Friday was the then very focused accelerator workshop, and we had a little under 100 people at that, and that was
just by invitation.
No. It was available, but it sold out very quickly.
Yeah, I saw that.
And we had the 5 accelerator executives on a panel the entire time and going through different topics, and part of it was, what should entrepreneurs or startups expect from an accelerator? And they talked a lot about just exactly that, like being in that crucible, constantly being pressured to be better, have a better pitch, have a thorough pitch, not just here's my web app, take a look at it, it's what are my projections, who are my customers, and all of that sort of entire business pitch that they need to have. They talked about that a lot. And at the very end, then we had a kind of a fun program where there were 2 minutes where people could give their pitch. And it was, again, a smaller crucible, but it's things like that where, like Startup Weekend that's here, where startups locally can get a lot more of the type of experience that they need to, and it's sort of a growing or progressive plan here that we need to get startups and we need to get entrepreneurs to know what they need to do to start a startup. We need to have the startups get to a level where they understand what it's like to be in that crucible, and then we can start to bring more awareness to the local ecosystem here. And I think it's also sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy that the better quality startups we have, and we have plenty today, the more of them that get out, the more VCs will start to say, wow, Hawaii is a good place. We need to open an office there. We need to get there more often.
Are you telling them that? Are you passing the word?
We're starting to pass the word. And even the accelerator managers that were here said that what they're seeing they never would have thought would have been here in Hawaii. And we have a lot of parallels with, especially we had the woman who leads an accelerator called Start Garden in Michigan. And it's in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's 3 hours from Detroit. It's 3 or 4 hours from Chicago. They have no tech community. They have no like tech industry, no VCs. And she had a lot of parallels with Hawaii that, were very far away from all these other entrepreneurial centers. And yet they're succeeding. And they took a little bit different approach than a typical accelerator. They are working on creating relationships with the VCs, and that's another thing that we talked about on Friday at the workshop, is that the different teams that are starting these accelerators in Hawaii or planning to start them, what's the job of their management? And one of their jobs is to go to the mainland, find VCs, go locally and find VCs or angel investors, bring them together and turn them and say, look at all these fantastic entrepreneurs and startups that are coming out of Hawaii, start paying attention to them.
But that's only second to learning about the startup, right? Mm-hmm. And then talking to the startup and saying, you're not catching this, you got to catch that.
Yes.
Let me help you with your model, let me help you with your direction, and with the details. I think somebody gets in on sheer brass, and they don't know anything, and then somebody's got to tell them they have to incorporate.
Yeah, there's the accelerator. I like to explain it as it's a crash course mini MBA, because a lot of the entrepreneurs who enter an accelerator, they may be fantastic developers, and it doesn't all have to be tech. They may be fantastic at what they do, but they don't know how to write a marketing plan. They don't know anything about PR communications. They don't know anything about legal or hiring or a term sheet. And the accelerator has to have a curriculum to teach them all of that, as well as have people who have gone through it before. And again, getting back to what's in it for the startups that pitched for us last week, they've all gone through that before, and they have some of that expertise that they can pass on to the next stage of startups.
How do you get it from the accelerator? Are there classes? You sit one-on-one? You go to Starbucks? How does this information pass from the management to the recipient?
Yeah. Are a lot of different models, all sort of similar. There some have sort of a curriculum where there are workshops and you're almost forced to go to class a couple times a week. Other ones have assigned mentors where you get you're sort of someone is inserted onto your team part-time to help guide you through all of this. Other ones takes more of a hands-off approach and say, here's our pool of mentors. It's up to you to say, I need help with marketing and legal, and then find the mentors that have marketing.
Learn to reach out.
And learn to reach out.
Learn to make the call.
And learn to make the call. And I've talked to a lot, from Alpha Lab in Pittsburgh to CoLab in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Start Garden and Launchpad LA in Southern California. And they all take a little bit different of approach, but it's, again, incumbent upon the management of the accelerator to have all of that available. If they don't have the mentor network or the expertise available, then their startups are going to have a harder time when they start getting asked those questions from potential investors.
How many management?
How many management in a typical...
you say management. Here, management.
What do you mean?
5? 1?
In one accelerator? I'm not sure what you mean.
Yeah. Well, in Startup Hawaii.
In Startup Hawaii.
How many
No.
minutes? 6, 10?
No, so
12?
we're not an accelerator. No,
Okay.
we're not going to be an accelerator. There
You
are
just organize the events that encourage the accelerator.
Yeah, and we try to bring the community together. There are about 8 of us total. A couple of the members.
8 accelerators.
No. We're not affiliated with any
accelerator. 8 people who manage accelerators.
No. Just 8 people. Period. A couple of them may be starting accelerators.
Okay.
A couple of them are just entrepreneurs. A couple of them are just interested parties and support.
They're not actually started yet.
Any of the accelerators? No, but a lot of them
Carl
are underway.
Fuchs was talking about that.
Yeah.
Now that he has his $2 million, now he's out to build them.
Yes, correct.
And that means, I guess, getting the management together. Yeah.
Well, so Carl is going to take proposals, and choose a few of those to give some money to, and they have to find matching funds as well. And then it's up to those individual accelerators to execute on their plan. And there's one on Maui that I've heard of, there's one on the Big Island, and there are 4 or 5 that are being talked about here on Oahu.
Give me an example of what it looks like when it's done. So suppose I live in Kanakakai. I want to give you a hard one.
Yeah, spell that.
And I wake up one morning and I decide I want to do an accelerator. What do I do?
You have to do a lot of research. And I honestly think at the workshop we had a show of hands of who's considering building an accelerator, and there are a lot more than I ever would have imagined. And I think some of those people may not have done enough research yet to really understand what goes into it. So it's not, and a part of that workshop, Launchpad LA just started. They're in their first year. He talked about how difficult it was to raise the matching funds, put together a team, go to Northern California and interface with the VCs and have them even take his calls when he was getting started. And I think it's everything we just talked about: finding mentors, building a curriculum, finding expertise, understanding what your own expertise is. What are you going to focus on? Is it just all iPhone app startups? Is it creative media startups? Is it anything? And it's up to that accelerator manager to put together a good plan and a good proposal.
So the accelerator could handle all or some. He can specialize, or they can specialize. And then as you said before, they're going to draw people in. They're going to draw capital in, resources in, and try to match everybody up, make a match.
Correct.
Of all these various resources.
Yeah, and it's even the drawing in of all of those different things. There should be a pretty high bar, because you know garbage in, garbage out. If you have not the greatest mentors, they're not going to give the greatest information to your startups.
So you have to find the mentors.
You have to find your mentors, the ones that are going to be willing to spend the time. You have to find good teams that are coming in that, and a lot of VCs say we don't invest in the product, we invest in the team, and that's a huge part of this. Which teams are you going to take, and how many are you going to take, and how many can Hawaii support? And there's a lot of unanswered questions yet, but it's all progressing in the right direction.
It's like a sweet dessert. There's so much good stuff happening.
Yeah.
So, but if I want to do this in my apartment in Kanakakai, I don't know if
that's not going to work. But go ahead.
So, am I going to make any money out of this as a manager, so to speak?
You may eventually, many years down the road.
Stock or warrants? Is that what happens?
So the way a typical accelerator works, and everyone who talked on Friday pretty much said if you're in it to make money, you're in the wrong business. You have to, number one, have a love of what you're doing. And it's, again, I want these startups to succeed. I want to see some exciting new technology from some really smart individuals, and I want to help them succeed. The way an accelerator makes money is they, number one, have to give out money first. So when these startups come in, they give them generally between $10,000 and $25,000 or $50,000 for an equity stake in the company, and that's usually in the 8% range. Once that company then graduates, and that's usually 3 months or so from the accelerator, it's up to that company to then become a viable business, raise more capital, become acquired, or whatever their next step is.
Accelerator's done with them, though.
But the accelerator
wants to give birth.
They accelerate their path to success or to viability. And back to what you asked about the accelerator manager's job, they should have those connections already built, that when these accelerated companies are graduating, there are VCs or investors or angel investors that they can instantly talk to.
Because that's already set up, kind of.
They should already have that set up. Exactly.
Graduation plan, if you will.
Exactly. So you have your accelerator in your house, which is probably not going to work because you need space for all these people to come and work. But you take your 8% equity, they graduate, let's say they get a follow-on investment, they start gathering customers and growing and growing and growing. You still just have 8% equity, and it's probably been diluted with additional follow-on
But you're
investments.
prepared for that.
And you're prepared
You
for
know
that.
you're going to be diluted. It's okay.
You know you're and not only that, you're out $25,000 that you invested in them, and the electricity and the maintenance and the operations and your flights back and forth to the mainland and all that. But then eventually these companies will get acquired. The successful ones will get acquired. Will grow and have profit, or and hopefully eventually IPO. But these days it's all about just growing successful, viable companies that you're a part owner in.
Just want to hit one.
You just need to hit one,
Then
and
you'll
that's
be okay. Then it'll all justify.
it'll all justify. But even that is hitting the lottery. There's only one Facebook, and if you can name them in the
But it's exciting to play the lottery.
It's exciting to play the lottery, yes. And then that's what's kind of in it for the accelerator manager. Other than the love of just elevating the ecosystem and helping these people, there's a potential to help one of these nascent startups grow into something that's really successful.
Well, that goes back to the point about the common good. I really feel that this generation, call it a generation, is different in the sense that I think there's a lot of people out there, a lot of these kids, excuse that expression, are in for the common good.
Yeah.
Which is, a great blessing to everyone that they have that mindset. I don't know how it happened. I've been looking for people who care about the common good for the last 10 years, and I haven't found as many as I'm finding right now. Isn't that nice?
Good.
You, for example.
Thank you.
You're definitely a common good.
Thanks. I try to be.
So now the money, not that much money, but say the 15 or 25,000, that comes from Carl.
No. So again,
He's going to give matching.
Carl gives a small chunk, and so he only has $2 million. 10% of that is already for kind of operational oversight.
Next year he'll have more.
Hopefully, yeah. And with this momentum, we hope to help give him some additional support to have more.
Yeah.
But he's going to split that between 2 or 3, so that each one of these individual accelerators are only going to get 6, 7, 8, 900,000 at most, and they need to find matching funds. So that's $1.5 million. Again, the accelerator executives on Friday were telling us that $1.5 million is going to get you through 1 year. And that's 10 or so accelerated companies. That's all the operations around it. That's paying someone to manage
you gotta
everything.
Spend it carefully.
Spend it wisely. Spend it carefully. He was the guy from Southern California was joking a lot about sponsorships and putting up Red Bull banners in their co-working space. But then they had a fridge full of Red Bull to feed people. So it's. Again, back to what you asked, can anyone just start an accelerator? Sure, anyone can throw a proposal together, but it's only going to be the ones who have really thought it through, have done their research, who have talked to people on the mainland, talked to others who have tried to start them.
And can evoke a certain kind of thinking in the people they deal with. They got to have a leadership aspect to that.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to ask you is, you made a reference to it earlier, and I heard when I attended on Thursday some reference to this, is that this isn't limited to tech. This is entrepreneurism, and it could be bloody anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. And then you talk about these other accelerator programs on the mainland, and it's them too. It's entrepreneurism, not limited to tech. And I say to myself, well, that's a change. That's different. Because if you went and looked at this kind of organization 10 years ago, there's we got to do tech. It's got to be tech. Maybe biotech, but it's gotta be tech. So here you are, opening the gates. Why are the gates opened? And what kind of non-tech companies are coming to you?
Yeah. Well, I've been in tech since 98, 99, and I love tech.
It's actually a long time.
Yeah, it is a long time, and I think tech is phenomenal, and especially now because you can get 1 or 2 or 3 people together to start a profitable business. Instagram had 12 people. The bad part about tech is Instagram creates a false reality. Facebook creates a false reality, and a lot of people think all I need to do is throw together an app, get a couple million users, and I'm going to get acquired for $1 billion. And again, that's a lottery. So while there's a lot to be said, and there are a lot of great tech companies that you never hear about that have successful exits, there's also a lot to be said for Hawaii's other industries, whether it's tourism or military or our proximity to Asia, or that we shouldn't put all of our eggs in the tech basket. And part of the legislation to fund an accelerator or several accelerators, one of the focal points has to be creative media, and whether that's defined as whatever.
It's a broad term. For sure.
Exactly, and it can have a tech component to it, but expanding that and talking about other companies that have started here, like Sig Zane, the clothing company, or the Koaloa Rum, or the Wailua Soda, or just tons of other. Nella Media Group is publishing, so there are a lot of other viable.
There's really no barrier here.
No.
If I come up with a new widget of any kind, you guys will talk to me. Maybe I'll be able to have the light shine down upon me from
exactly,
the accelerator,
exactly.
and maybe I can learn something and make a go of it.
Uh-huh.
And I guess that this is all sort of brand new. I mean, when I come from New York, where there's a lot of business action everywhere. When I grew up, kids weren't going into business right out of school. That was impossible. You waited, and maybe somehow the heavens are aligned, and then you'd find an opportunity. But most kids didn't do that. They went into some kind of professional thing, or they worked for their parents. There wasn't that option. And even in the 90s, when things were getting so hot about tech, it wasn't a general business kind of opportunity thing. It was tech. It was the nascent quality, the high volume, the high risk quality of tech. And now, with this, that's a huge change, I think, because it changes the country.
Yes.
It changes the way kids ideate their future. So I'm in Kauai High. I'm moving from Molokai.
All right.
And I hear about you, and I decide I want to go into a business that makes flour lays, but better than any flour lay you've ever seen.
Better, cheaper, faster.
Better, cheaper, faster. All that, and I want to sell them to different markets and use a lot of technology to do that. And all of a sudden, like the ukuleles, I may really have an option if I play it right. That was impossible before. That just didn't happen. Even the ukulele guys, it just didn't happen. So what we have now is a change in the national view. I don't think the world realizes this yet.
No.
It's just coming out now.
Yeah, it's so much easier to start a business these days, and whether a lei-making company is sort of a backable venture in high growth.
You don't have to commit on that.
Yeah. I'm not sure. But again, it is like Ukulele Underground is just 3 guys. Nella Media Group is small but growing, and they all started very successful businesses that are driving revenue and growing with just a small team. And if you have a developer, if you have someone who knows business, if you have someone who knows marketing, that's pretty much all it takes. And if 3 of you get together and you have a great idea and have the support you need to get that going, and have some great ideas about how to position and promote your business, then you're probably going to do well. The accelerators are going to be here, hopefully, to teach those skills that they don't have, fill the gaps that those teams don't have, introduce them to the right people, set them up with the right mentors here and outside of Hawaii, and hopefully get Hawaii a little bit more on the map of there are some great companies coming out of Hawaii. We talk about investment, we talk about expertise, we're always looking towards California and the rest of the country, and we need to start looking west and getting more and more resources from that part of the world.
I mean, talent.
Whether it's talent, investment. I mean, I hear more and more murmurings of Chinese or Japanese investors coming to town and looking for investments outside of real estate. They want to invest in businesses here. So
thank God for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Enough with the real estate already.
Yeah. And then real estate's another option as well. But I think there are a lot of good industries that are already here. I think one thing we need to work on is getting support of University of Hawaii to be a little more active in the startup ecosystem. I think if we get more of the let's all pull together and focus on this, one thing that a lot of these different accelerators throughout the country and different kind of regions throughout the country that are successful, their universities have a huge hand in that. And it's not that they're controlling it, it's that they're supporting it either through student programs that help get involved, or through research that's spun off, or whatever the case may be. But that's
just being part of the team.
Just being part of the team,
you know,
exactly.
Maybe
exactly.
being in a cell, so to speak, that's working on something outside,
yeah.
and somebody with a PhD skill comes and participates in that.
Exactly.
We got to bring them together. Maybe that's your accelerator managers focus on that. We've got a new chancellor. Maybe there's an open door there. I've heard it said that he's open to this kind of thing.
Good.
Tom Apple, and maybe
awesome.
a visit to him wouldn't hurt you.
Well, if he's listening,
he may be there. Well, I feel that Hawaii does have opportunities. Hawaii has culture points that sort of that militate against collaboration. Everybody wants to be in that silo, but it's also Hawaii is capable of responding to what you're doing, and I think it is responding. Clear on Thursday. So in the afternoon, it was after I left. I'm sorry. Steve Case spoke. Can you summarize his remarks?
I could summarize it with we all need to work together, and that was part of the gist of it is we have a lot of resources here, like we've been saying for the last little bit while. Everyone needs to sort of get together, eliminate these silos, push everyone towards succeeding, and whether that's one thing Steve Case talked about was we talked about the lack of talent, and that if I run a startup and I need talent, I'm essentially poaching them off of you, who is running a startup down the street. And I asked him the question of how is that, how can that possibly be good? We need to bring people back or people in from the outside. And he said, well, it's bad until the company doing the poaching or the startup doing the poaching is the most likely succeed. Yeah, and the community sort of gets behind them, and so Hawaii has had several of those already, and we need to have more and sort of identify them as those are the ones that are most likely to succeed. So we should sort of put the wood of our bat behind those. Also, while helping the ones that aren't succeeding as well, how do you get to that point where you're the one that's then next in line? Well,
this goes to a really interesting question, and now is probably the right time to talk about it. This past week I saw Tarek Haq. Tarek Haq, I forget the name of his company right now, but he had to do with mesh technology and wireless.
Okay.
And he was a real leader. He was our first radio show. That's got to be more than 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago. And Tarek was back. He was back for the MIC affair on Friday.
Oh, good. Okay.
And one of the things that he was responsible for in those days, he was the president of the Hawaii Technology Trade Association, God rest their souls, but he was trying to lobby a bill through that just neutralized, disqualified, gave no validity, invalidated covenants not to compete.
Okay.
With the specific notion, and I guess California has a statute like this, with the specific notion of not letting people sue their employees who left for failing, to abide by a covenant not to compete.
Yeah.
Because it's very discouraging. And it's limiting. And the idea, and these are my words, but the idea is that a mature sector is a sector where you can quit your job in the morning and get another one in the afternoon. And if you got a covenant around your neck, it's very hard to do that.
Yes.
So at the time, Tarek was lobbying for this for HTTA. I don't think it had a lot of traction, and in fact, this bill didn't get through. And right now, today, covenants are enforceable in the state of Hawaii. But I wonder if there's a feeling, as part of this new generation you're talking about, is that we want to be able to quit in the morning and go to work for somebody in the afternoon. We want poaching. Poaching is good. And we should not have these really hideous kinds of covenants not to compete. It's when the big guys can stomp on the little guys. That's what happens. And you've heard stories like that. Anything in the wind?
No, nothing in the wind that I know of. I know in California that every job I had in Silicon Valley, they make you sign a non-compete, and as they're handing you the paper to sign, they tell you this really isn't enforceable anyway, and it's not in California. And I think there's something to be said for protecting. If I have a company and someone's with us for a couple years and they go to a direct competitor with all of my trade secrets,
that's not so good.
That's not so good. But there's also something to be said for keeping the wheels of commerce very well greased and helping the ones that are most likely to succeed get the people that they need to succeed. And there needs to be a little bit of discretion in, all right, is that other company, just because they're in tech, are they really a competitor? And I think if there's an opportunity to help widen that flexibility there, then obviously I'm pretty sure Startup Hawaii would support that.
Maybe it's a tuning thing, It's not saying that they're all unenforceable, but they're enforceable to a limited extent.
Exactly.
For reasonable protection.
Yeah.
But beyond that, don't hurt anybody. There's no need to, separate a guy from his career.
Yes, correct.
It's not a good thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think those things are coming down the pike because as you build a sort of a startup industry, I guess I'd call it now, you really have to encourage people in every way. And you have to discourage the unpleasantnesses and the lawsuits.
Yeah.
Keep the lawyers out of it.
Exactly, yes. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I think you're right about collaboration, but we've heard collaboration many times. Every time we put on one of our programs at the Plaza Club, somebody comes up with that was the word of the day, collaboration, and it, like sustainability.
Yeah, yes.
It gets to be overused.
Yeah.
So what's the real message from Steve Case? I mean, aside from the collaboration.
Yeah, I think it's funny. One of Startup America's mantras that they say over and over again is get stuff done, but they don't use the word stuff. They use a little bit stronger language there. And he talked about that a lot too, of, he likes doers. He likes people who are pushing things forward. And I've heard a lot about that. All right, there are a lot of other initiatives and people talk a lot about doing things, but we need to actually do. And I think the entire Startup Hawaii team kind of has that same focus. What
does do mean?
Do rather than talk about it. So have these types of events, like the events on Thursday and Friday. What do we need? Let's focus on it. Let's throw a team at it. Let's all get together and say, if we need to get more expertise here locally around how accelerators need to be managed, let's do it. Let's not talk about it, or let's not cry that we're 5,000 miles away or that we're 6 hours difference. Let's just do it. Bring them here. Let's go there, whatever we need to do, and do it. Now what's the next step? It's finding angel investors to come out of the woodwork here with more money, finding mainland investors to come here. How do we do that? Well, let's Startup Hawaii and our small team. Let's get together with Hawaii Angels and their team and say, how do we together do something, and what are the milestones, and what are we going to do next, and what are we going to do next, and what's the date on that, and let's set the date, and let's start telling people so we actually follow through and do it. And I think that's another one of his big messages from last week is do things. Don't talk about it. Don't whine about not having something.
Don't whine. That's perfect.
Do it.
You want a word of the day? Don't whine. It's hyphenated.
Yeah.
Well, he came around on Friday, to MIC.
Yes.
And I wondered, actually, because you were doing your thing in the Sheraton, and here he is, and everybody in MIC turned out, because it was him and Neil Abercrombie, having a tour to half a dozen of the startups, I shouldn't say startups, the tenants there in MIC. And it was great. You couldn't have been there because you were down in
I was at the workshop,
But it was really good. Tone was good. The governor made good statements. So did Steve Case. Everybody turned out. Talk about good tone. It was good tone.
Yeah, good.
I wondered why, though, they did it that day. Why do we have this conflict? Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, it wasn't that there was so much of a conflict. So the Case Governor Manoa Innovation Center event was designed to be actually, let's bring attention to everything we're doing this week.
Focus it in. The whole week is sort of dedicated to.
Yeah, and to get the governor involved and show that he's supportive of not only the accelerator legislation, which he obviously signed very willingly, but all of the other movement that's going on here. And let's highlight some of then there are some startups up at MIC, and as well as some other later stage startups. Let's highlight them and show what they're doing, and show the governor, show Steve Case, and really bring a lot more attention and awareness to what's actually happening. So whereas Thursday's events may have been focused a little bit more on just opinion and here's what we need to do and rah, 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 Friday was a little more here's where the rubber meets the road on both sets of events. So that workshop was very granular, and everything from how do you market your accelerator to what types of snacks do you have to have available, and what questions should you ask on your application. and then the event with Steve Case and the governor was focused on bringing attention and media attention to everything that's going on here in the state.
Yeah, it was great. And I really enjoyed the flavor of it, and it was more
Good.
really for me of the same, that there's a new wind in the air, and that people are at least working together on trying to raise all boats. Everybody seems to be trying to help their neighbor and all that. And his comments and Steve Case's comments were consistent with that. So, but it struck me that one of the ways, and I'm sure you're into this big time, one of the ways that you get the community involved, the investors involved, the public involved. If the public is involved, this is a very good thing.
Yes.
Because it has secondary effect. It has effect on the legislature. It has effect on all the structures in our community if the public is involved. So I'm thinking, well, here at this table, we could interview people the way you were letting them present. We could let them present. I mean, an interview may not be the right word. Just let them present if they want.
Yeah.
Just
have a
pitch.
Ongoing pitches.
Yeah.
With the startups that are available. I'd
be willing to do that.
Yeah.
So Jason, if you have somebody, or if you have a continuing stream of people, I'm happy to take them here.
Yeah.
And do this very thing. We'll put it on a Lello, and everybody will see what they have to say. And then when they see them, they say, "Wow, there's some real energy there.
Yeah.
Maybe we should take note of this, and maybe it's a new time now."
Yeah. One of the things one of the accelerator managers commented on was, Hawaii is a small ecosystem, and there are going to be multiple accelerators. And not only is there going to be competition for the local expertise and local dollars, but also the mentors. But then most of these accelerators culminate in a demo day. And there's going to be competition around that of which day is it and who's going to come. And one of the accelerator managers said, it's a small place. You guys should all get together. All of the accelerators should say, we're doing one demo day. If there are 30 accelerators or 2, we're all going to have our demo day at the same place, same day. Bring in call in all of our favors from mainland investors and local investors, and make it a celebration of startups in Hawaii. And I thought that was a phenomenal idea of, again, about the togetherness and collaboration. Let's not make it a competition on whose demo day was the best. Let's get everyone together and just really highlight all of the great startups that are coming out.
So where do the co-working places fit into all of this? I mean, we have a regular relationship with the Box Jelly. They sit here every week and tell us about the development of their own business. It's modeled after this show called Restaurant on cable a few years ago, where these guys would tell you how the restaurant was doing week to week. It was very interesting.
Oh, good.
The same thing here. They tell us what's going good, what's not going good. It's really fun. So anyway, so that one is a greenhouse, and maybe there'll be more. I'd like to see more.
Yeah, definitely.
So the question is, what role do they play in this whole process you're talking about?
I think they could play a pretty strong role. I mean, you mentioned greenhouse, Box Jelly. There's R&D.
R&D,
and I'm sure others will pop up. One of the mainland accelerators I've talked to in the past, they have their accelerator, and since they have to make space for them, they also have a co-working space that they just sell space to any individual who wants to come. I think that's a critical part of an accelerator, is the actual space, and not the coolness of the space or what the space is, but just having a place where people can come together and meet with their mentors and work as a group and learn from each of the other groups that are there. So whether some of these local co-working spaces either start their own accelerator or are part of an accelerator, or an accelerator works with them, since the space is already available, to say, all right, we have accelerator X, but we're going to be housed in the greenhouse or the Box Jelly or R&D or whatever. So I think space is crucial. And again, back to the money, these accelerators have to pay for space. They have to pay for internet. They have to pay for whiteboards and whiteboard pens and paper and everything else. And potentially partnering with a co-working space could be a good way to do that and help save on costs.
Yeah, well, I think there's something there, and I think that there's a likelihood of more of them. I mean, I know the Box Jelly is thinking about one in Chinatown, one in Kailua. They've gone public about this. There's no secrets here. And more and more we'll find that it's happening. But it strikes me that the anchor location right now seems to be Kaka'ako.
Kaka'ako, yeah.
And I guess part of that is that Kaka'ako is a place that should have been a long time ago.
Yeah.
All these great plans and models 10 years ago with KS and all this, none of which happened. But maybe now KS is sort of catching up.
Yeah.
At the same time, Kevin Hughes and others have said, well, that's nice, but for right now today, if you want a great location for startups, go to Kaimuki. Up on the hill, there's great restaurants and so forth. So I guess my larger question is, what role does geography play in all of this? Do you think geography is, I hate to use the word incubator, but is a good place to incubate accelerators?
Yeah. Well, I wish there were more co-working spaces in Hawaii Kai, because that's where I live. I think geography might have a little bit to do with it. I mean, obviously downtown Honolulu is where everyone goes every morning, or most people, and I think there's, it just has to be easy to get to. It has to be reasonable for the entrepreneurs who are there for parking and everything else. And there have to be. It's funny that you mentioned restaurants in Kaimuki, because at the accelerator workshop, someone asked the question of how far away from the beach should we build our accelerators here, and they all said that with everything else included, it should have coffee shops, restaurants nearby, and parking. And they want people to get out of the office and have a restaurant or a coffee shop to go to, and they want people to be, it's easy in and out and flexible for them. They can ride their bike or take mass transit or take the bus or whatever. And I think geography has a lot to do with it, especially here in Hawaii. I think if someone built one in Haleiwa, that might be a little tough for people to get back and forth to, but wherever it is downtown, they just have to have the flexibility to let people get there easily. And I think they'll all become hubs hubs of innovation, hubs of just great new businesses, hubs of ideas, and they should have space for presentations, to do other events, to bring in speakers. So regardless of where the location is, I think it's
got to have those certain characteristics.
Yeah, and it has to be easy for everybody to get to. Yeah.
Last question. We only have a couple 3 minutes for it, but somebody said, it might have been you last week, that so now we've got this new technique for raising money. Was it on the web? And you make I'm blocking on the name of it.
Yeah.
You make a small donation on the web, and you get some,
like Kickstarter.
Kickstarter is one.
Crowdfunding.
And crowdfunding another one. And maybe there'll be more. I mean, why stop at two? And if it gets by the Securities Exchange Commission, we're all very happy about that.
Yeah.
And I mean, to me, this is a huge change. Somebody said, Steve Case said, and he said it at Manoa on Friday is where he said it. This is a big change since 1934 with the Securities Exchange Act.
Yeah.
So here we are in a place where where KS may do things, but they don't actually give a lot of money.
Yeah.
Where the employees' retirement system, now under new management, the previous guy was not really into giving a lot of money to entrepreneurs here. Maybe this guy will see a different light. But could it be that we're going to have new techniques that will result in real money? I one time I wrote an article about what I call the People's Investment Fund, where anybody who believed in technology and entrepreneurship could write a small check, put it in the fund, and it's sort of like a mutual kind of thing, and have a little piece of the action somehow. So if you were living in Hawaii and you knew somebody and believed in in the future, then you would actually invest in the future that way. But everybody told me that was going to be a problem.
Well, you were ahead of your time, because that's crowdfunding.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's what we got to do in this country. Not here only, but all across the country we got to do it. Do you feel that's coming? Do you see that's coming? Is that part of the model going forward? How important is that?
No, it's very important. It's part of the Jobs Act that Steve Case talked about, and allowing there are some very draconian laws related to investment, and I'm probably not the best person to talk to them, but as long as there's opening for more cash flow and more venture capital to come into these startups here or anywhere, that can only be a good thing if there are some gateways around what is acceptable and transparency and all of that. But I think, for better or for worse, it's going to take one of the We don't have that here. We don't have investors here in Hawaii. It's going to take that away from people as a crutch to say that's one of the reasons we can't succeed is because we don't have enough investment. If that's opened up to everyone and borders are eliminated and you can ask for funding from anyone in the country, that's fantastic for startups anywhere in the country. And I think that'll be a good thing. I think we still need venture capital. We still need a good angel network here. We still need to drum up more angels and more investment in Hawaii. But anything that can help at any stage of that capital raising will be great for Hawaii startups.
We're on the cusp of something here, you know.
Yeah.
It's a change in the economic system, no less than that.
Yeah.
You know, you worry about China taking all the initiatives away from us, and the U.S., you know, sort of slowing down and getting sloppy and you know, ineffectual.
Yeah.
This tells you otherwise.
Yes.
This tells you there's a new generation coming on, a generation with your help, Jason, that will make a whole new economy for us. That's what I see here.
Yeah.
It's not limited to one meeting. It's not limited to one place.
Yeah. And we all need to do it together. I mean, it's a team effort from Startup Hawaii. It's all of the state organizations. It's on Thursday we had 25 or so entrepreneurial support organizations, one at each lunch table, talking about what they do and how they can help entrepreneurs. And it's getting all of them together and the community, the individual together to help support this whole ecosystem.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Wonderful to talk to you.
Thanks, you too.
I'm so glad we got together.
Yeah, me too.